Thank you so much to Hasselblad for sponsoring this video. And also I need to add this little disclaimer here for the whole video for German bureaucracy reasons. But yeah, they never told me what to say or what to do, and all of the thoughts in this video are my own. Okay, let's go. I finally built my dream camera. It's an insane mixture between a fully mechanical film camera and some of the most modern technology in the world, giving me a 50-year-old camera that produces 100 megapixel digital files, containing the highest detail I've ever seen in a photo. Back in 2020, when a silly spiky ball gave us all way too much time, I heavily got into film photography. After almost a decade of digital photography, diving into the analog medium felt like discovering my favorite hobby all over again, and the hipster street cred I was getting was through the roof. I went deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. Buy film, shoot film, scan film, remove dust spots, shoot some more, remove some more dust spots, shoot even more dust spots. I spent about 1.5 years shooting film almost exclusively, while I watched my bank account die a slow, gruesome death because the price of film was absolutely skyrocketing. At first, shooting film was just pure exploration and learning about a side of photography I previously never had considered. I was having an absolute blast, but at some point I started to develop expectations for how I wanted my work to look, and when those expectations didn't turn into reality after hours of developing and scanning, my frustration was almost as big as when Kodak decided that 3 packs of Kodak Gold for $7.99 should now cost over $20.
Please, no! No!
That's why over the past years I have committed my life to simulating the film look digitally, and I thought while I'm at it, maybe I should just get addicted to the validation of strangers on the internet and start a YouTube channel. Yeah. Why not? While I kept getting better and better at mimicking the look, even building apps to help me do so, there is one thing I realized. My brain has been irreversibly conditioned to just pour out buckets of dopamine whenever I use a mechanical film advance, hear the slap of a big fat mirror, or realize reality is just a hollow shell of whatever is projected onto a ground glass viewfinder. That's why for the past years I've always had this idea in my mind. A mechanical camera that gives me the focused, intentional, dopamine waterfall experience of shooting with a camera twice my age, while giving me the versatility and workflow the digital AI overlords made me love. In theory, it would be really simple. Just take your favorite old camera and wherever the film goes, just put a digital sensor there. In the end, film and a digital sensor are both just a 2D plane that captures light. And this idea is nothing new. During the film to digital transition 20 years ago, companies like Leica started building digital add-ons to retrofit their analog cameras with digital sensors. But even though that was 20 years ago, nowadays there aren't really any good solutions, and believe me, people have tried. Over the years, I have seen tons of Raspberry Pi prototypes, and I don't even have enough functioning limbs to count how many Kickstarter campaigns have tried to make this a reality and breathe some new life into old cameras, but they all had significant issues. The biggest problem is the amount of space you have. To make a solution fit as many cameras as possible, you realistically only have the same amount of space available that a roll of film would take up, and even with today's technology, fitting a full-frame sensor in there just simply isn't happening. The tolerances also have to be perfect, because even the slightest misalignment of the sensor means the image will be partly out of focus. Additionally, many of the solutions require you to use an extra shutter button for the sensor while putting the camera into bulb mode so the sensor can be exposed. But I keep having these dreams where I take digital photos with an analog camera and everybody thinks I'm cool and nobody makes fun of me in the YouTube comments. Then I wake up soaked in sweat, thinking there has to be a way to make this work. Well, the camera part, not the other stuff. And now I finally have it. This is an EXC plus Hasselblad 500C, a fully mechanical medium format film camera first introduced in 1970. And it produces 100 megapixel 16-bit RAW files that are 212 megabytes each. It's all thanks to this, the Hasselblad CFV 100C digital back. You simply attach the CFV 100C instead of a film back and tell it what camera you're using. At 100 megapixels and a size of 43.8 by 32.9 millimeters, this is one of the biggest and highest quality sensors money can buy. The sensor, of course, is not as large as the 6x6 format the 500cm originally was built to shoot, but a sensor that size doesn't exist, and it is still a significant step up from full frame. And of course much larger than APS-C, which is still one of my most used formats. Because the viewfinder is built for framing up 6x6, Hasselblad sent you an insert with the CFV 100C to adjust your frame lines. Okay, but what is it like to shoot with this camera?
We're gonna try one more time. Wait, I'm gonna get a bit lower. One a bit closer.
Shooting with this setup is so much fun. It's just like shooting film, and I think I almost OD'd on all the dopamine my brain was pouring out. I was shocked how flawlessly this works compared to all of the other solutions I've seen in the past. You don't even have a separate shutter button. The digital back stays in standby and detects when you take a photo to expose the sensor. Functionally, there is no difference to using this camera with film, except that you can change the ISO and don't have to load and unload film. But I do miss the occasional existential crisis after you open up the camera and realize you hadn't actually wound the film back yet. Luckily, a recent study has shown that this is much more likely to happen to people who are not subscribed to my channel. With this combo, you have two options for metering your exposure. Either metering with the digital back by letting the light pass through to the sensor, which is a bit tedious though. That's why I opted for just metering with my phone as I would when shooting film. But of course it doesn't really matter when you get your exposure wrong, because you can just look at the photo on the screen and take another one if you messed it up, which I'm good at. Also, low light performance is really good, and because this is digital, you can crank that ISO when it gets darker. I was worried this 100mm Zeiss planar lens wouldn't be sharp enough for the 100 megapixel sensor, but because we're just taking a crop from the center where the lens is the sharpest, it actually performs extremely well. But focusing isn't that easy, because when your focus is off just a little bit, you can instantly see it with these super high resolution files, and that is compounded by the fact that you have a pretty thin focus plane with this large sensor. The only downside of this setup is the price. The 500cm itself, together with the lens, already cost me €1,250, and the CFV 100C digital back retails for about €9,000. That's a lot of money. But you get the only no compromises film plus digital experience out there, and insane image quality. This is as close to shooting film as it gets, while showing the AI overlords that you're a good digital boy. I mean, while keeping all of the versatility of shooting digital. And you can get the predecessor, the Hasselblad CFV 100C, for about half that price on the used market, which is a really good alternative. The fact that this is just a plug-and-play solution is really impressive from an engineering standpoint, especially because you don't have to do any modifications to the camera, and can just swap back and forth between film and digital within seconds. And you can always just attach the digital back to the 907X and use it with modern autofocus lenses. But it's not just the sensor that makes this thing so good. The whole minimalist design language from hardware to software is very refreshing. It's purely a photography camera and does a great job of focusing on the essentials and not getting in your way. For example, I've never had to remember to put an SD card into it because it has a 1TB SSD built in. Honestly, it's 2025. I don't understand why not more cameras implement internal storage. Using my beautiful old 500cm with the CFV 100C is definitely the most unique photography experience I've ever had. There is something so weird but amazing about taking photos with this 50-year-old mechanical camera that is extremely tactile, changing settings, focusing manually, looking through the ground glass, advancing the film, that big fat mirror slap, but then going home and plugging it into your computer with USB-C and having these crazy 16 16-bit 100 megapixel RAW files to work with. I just absolutely fell in love with it. It's so freaking cool. It's definitely not for everyone, but I know there are people out there just like me who have been dreaming of combining analog and digital in this way, and it's glorious. If you want to see me take this 100 megapixel beast on a photography road trip in the Dolomites, why don't you check out my last video? It's one of the best videos I've ever made in my opinion, but it absolutely tanked, so please go watch it. Okay, see you in the next one. Bye bye.